of the Supreme Soul. Purport. In the Vedic hymns it is said, Etasmad Atmana Akasha Sambhutaha. The sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Those who are egoistic in passion and ignorance cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead. For them, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Text 33. Kalamayam sayogena bhagavad vikshitam nabaha nabaso nushratam sparsham vikurvan nirmamera nilam. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. Please repeat. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. All material creations take place from subtle to gross. The entire universe has developed in that manner. From the sky developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, the external energy, and the glance of the personality of Godhead. The touch sensation developed into the air in the sky. Similarly, all other gross matter also developed from subtle to gross. Sound developed into sky, touch developed into air, form developed into fire, taste developed into water, and smell developed into earth. Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Krishna Goswami Dhammi. Nama Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dhammi. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauranga. I seek the blessings of all the devotees that I can speak something that is beneficial to all of us and to myself, and I pray that whatever we try to repeat from what we have heard and read, that it penetrates our heart and it brings about transformation of the heart. So Prabhupada in these two purports, he's talking about the subtle elements of the material nature. So he particularly mentions that all material creations take place from subtle to gross. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 888, where Lord Chaitanya is having conversation with Ramananda Rai, he's asking him different questions. So Ramananda Rai, he starts from the lower rung and then he goes to the higher rung, and he also talks about the material elements, and he relates that to spiritual, because in the material world we don't sometimes understand what is in the spiritual world, but we use examples from the material world as close as possible. Of course, in the material world, it can't be exactly the same as the spiritual, because spiritual is completely free from any tinge of material limitations. So in that purport, it talks about where Prabhupada mentions in this purport also, and in this Chaitanya Charitamrita, it mentions Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that from sound, sky comes. So the subtle, when Lord Brahma first came out of the lotus and he was searching everywhere of where is his origin, and he's wondering what is happening, then he heard the sound, tapa, the two-syllable sound, and then he started meditating. So sound is originating also from the spiritual, but it also has a material element, because Lord Brahma is part of the material creation, even though it's a subtle energy. And then from touch, air develops. So So when it goes into gradations, so when it goes to the higher one to touch, you have the sound element and the touch element. Just like the air, we can hear the wind and we can feel the air. And then form develops. Form develops into fire. So in fire, we have the sound element, the touch element, and the form. The fire has form. And then taste develops. So in taste develops water. So in water, we have all the other previous elements and one more. So we have sound, touch, form, and taste. And then we have smell, and from smell develops the earth. So from there it's sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. We can smell the fragrance of the earth. So Prabhupada mentions there that in text 32, it says that those who are egoistic in passion and ignorance cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead. So the Lord is so merciful that there's opportunity for everyone to come gradually to the transcendental platform, to the stage of Bhakti Yoga. So it's mentioned there also in the scriptures, like the Aborigine people, they worship the lightning, they worship material elements. There's people who worship mountains and material nature, the trees. And even though it's very on a lower level and they're in the mode of ignorance and passion, but still they are giving honor to something higher than themselves, which will gradually elevate them to a higher platform. Just like the impersonalists. They Gnana yogis, and then they try to also meditate on impersonal aspects of the Lord, and they want to merge into the Brahma Jyoti, where there's so-called nothingness. So there's a opportunity for everyone, whatever mode of nature we are in, because it's always mixed, and at every moment by moment we are in the different modes of nature according to what we choose. So we always have that free will, that choice. And Prabhupada mentions the sky element. So the sky element, we can see the sky, when we look up at the sky, it seems so unlimited. It's all pervasive. There's mentioned the all pervasiveness of the sky. And in the purport, it mentions Supersoul enters into the atomic particle of each living entity and enters into every atomic particle. So in Bhagavad Gita 8.9 purport, it talks about the all-pervading potency of the Lord. It mentions there that He is smaller than the smallest. The living entity is 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. But the Lord is so inconceivably small that He enters into the heart of this particle. As the Supreme Lord, He can enter into the atom and into the heart of the smallest and control him as the Supersoul. So when it says there, when Prabhupada mentions that when Krishna enters as the Supersoul within the heart and controls that living entity, it's not exactly that He fully controls. He directs one to one's desires. So whatever we desire, Krishna, it says that He gives remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, it says, Sarva Sachaham Hridi Samivishto Matta Smitim Ganam Apohanam Cha Vedaischa Sarve Aham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Vid Eva Chaham. So it says there that I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So He directs us according to, and we always have this minute free will. We always have a choice because we are the marginal potency, the Tatastha Shakti of the Lord. So we can choose the external, the Bahiranga energy of the Lord, or we can choose the internal, the Antaranga Shakti. So we can either choose to go for material sense gratification, or we can choose to gratify Krishna's senses and to work for the pleasure of Krishna. So we always have this choice, and no one anywhere, even in the worst situation, can say that I can't turn to God because of such and such as circumstances, because we always have a choice. If we take one tiny step towards Krishna, Krishna takes so many steps towards us. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.21 purport, it says that the Lord, being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence. He reveals himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude. So it's all about service attitude. If we want to please Krishna, we need to develop this service attitude. And it's not that we externally are doing the devotional service, because anyone can externally do service. Just like we have some Hollywood movies where they have dressed up as devotees. They put on wigs and where they have no hair and they have a tuft of hair, and they are acting as devotees. And of course we understand that even if one chants or pretends to be a devotee, there is some benefit. But the key element is the service attitude. If one develops the service attitude, one can go deeper and one gets the favor and mercy of the Lord. Just like, for example, in the classroom, the teacher has a wide variety of students within the classroom. And then there are students who are just doing things mechanically or rote learning and just repeating like a parrot what the teacher is teaching. But then there may be another student who is trying to understand why this is. For example, when they're learning mathematics, then the teacher these days, they don't ask, they don't just see what is the answer. They want to know how the student came to that answer. So there's different ways the student can come to the answer. But what the teacher is trying to understand is that there is comprehension, there is understanding in how things are working and how one has come to that. So when we are practicing devotional service, it's very important that we understand why we're doing what we're doing and who we are doing this for. So when we come in the morning, when we come to the temple, we are bowing down. I remember when it was Sri Radhika Charana Renu's initiation, and it was through Zoom, and Indudumna Swami was mentioning how we should always be conscientious of what we do. It's not that we bow down and we say Jai Haribol and we stand up. No, we are saying the pranam mantras of Prabhupada, Nama Om, and of our spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vesatarine. Why are we saying that? What is the meaning? We are paying obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who is connecting us through our spiritual master to the Guru Parampara, and then to Krishna, and we are asking them for mercy, that please engage me in service, please purify my heart, and remove the ignorance and this conception of Mayavada and impersonalism from within our hearts. And when we do things conscientiously, then it penetrates the heart. Also, when we do the physical act of bowing down, then it invokes a certain element within our heart of that of humility. So even doing both the physical and then applying the mental, our intelligence on what we're doing, then we can go deeper. So it says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, 8, Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapi ukrama timashravah gritya vaitani samyati vayu gandhan ibashayat. So gandhan means smell. It says in the translation, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So we understand that we are a spirit soul, we are covered by the gross material body and the subtle material body. So the subtle material body is made up of the intelligence, the false ego, mind intelligence and false ego. So the example is given of like the air, the aroma. We smell something, whether it's something, a good smell like the rose, or a very bad smell like one passes in the laboratory, one passes. So that air carries that aroma, but if we identify with that, then we are stuck in the material world. So we understand that this air, this aroma comes, but it passes. So when we can understand that we are given this subtle body and this material body for service to Krishna, we are given this human form of life, which is a rare opportunity to try to inquire, who am I, who is God, and what is my relationship with God. In the purport, it mentions in that same purport, the living entity is described here as Ishvara. That means we have the choice. We are the controller of our own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade. And if he likes, he can move to a lower class. The minute independence is always there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. So it says leading up to, from this point, it leads up to the verse in Bhagavad Gita 8:6, where chapter 8 is talking about attaining the Supreme. It says, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. In the purport it says there that one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. So the best practice of creating our next life is the Sankirtan movement, or the process given by Lord Chaitanya, by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was just listening to a Zoom class, a class actually, it was on Facebook, by Sheshika Prabhu. I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday. He's giving in Sridham Mayapur, and he was talking about how there's so many problems in the material world because they're also attending the ILS, which is the International Leadership, the Sangha, and all the leaders come from all over the ISKCON, all over the world, and they get together and they have discussions. And he was emphasizing, the only real, the main solution and the easiest solution is chanting the Lord's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Of course, there are aspects of the material world that we can take for our help. Just like the self-help gurus are there, they guide us and they help us on the best practices where we can achieve our highest good. And also if people are having marriage problems, they go to a marriage counselor. So we utilize these things, or we have some illness, or we have some physical or mental illness, we utilize the psychiatrist or psychologist, we go to the doctor. But ultimately we shouldn't put those as the highest or the priority, because we understand that ultimately it's the holy names. So in Bhagavatam it's also mentioned that we should understand that our work is not, our income that we obtain from our work is not maintaining us. It is Krishna who's maintaining us. We're just utilizing that work according to our psychophysical nature, but ultimately it's Krishna who is providing. Just like the example is given of a doctor. A doctor may perform the same surgery for 2 different patients, but one patient may die and another patient may survive. So the doctor is using the same principles and he's adjusting where possible according to the patient. But why is it that one patient dies? Because ultimately it's Krishna who is sanctioning everything. So it's not that also that he says, oh, it's all Krishna, what should I do? And say, okay, I'm not going to do my part. We are given this human body because we also have given, just like in the Damodar Leela, when Mother Yashoda is trying to bind Krishna, the rope is 2 fingers too short. And those 2 fingers too short represents the one aspect is our endeavor. We always need to endeavor and do our part. But we understand that even if we do our part materially, ultimately it's Krishna, it's up to Krishna and His mercy whether He sanctions it. So even though we do our part and it doesn't come through, or we may endeavor materially, then we shouldn't become despondent or blame Krishna that Krishna, I did everything and look, you are not giving me what I want. No, we understand that ultimately it doesn't matter. I am trying to do this for Krishna and the devotees' pleasure. And if the result doesn't come as I expected, maybe Krishna has another plan, a better plan than I think of. I remember before I got married and there were devotees who were also trying to help me, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll travel here or I'll travel there, maybe I'll go to England and whatever. But one devotee gave this advice that, ultimately wherever you go, what you're going to do, you still need help and assistance. For example, in the marriage aspect, you need someone to speak on your behalf. So ultimately, he said, just pray to Krishna, go in front of Gauranita. Even Ambika Mataji, she mentions how Prabhupada said that if you have any problem, you go in front of Gauranita, you go in front of Krishna Balaram, you fold your hands and you say, my dear sirs, my dear lords, I have such and such a problem, please help me. And ultimately we serve Krishna and for His pleasure. And when we put Krishna as the priority, all the material things may fall into place. Of course, we understand that it's also a need, and it's mixed with material aspect as well. So even within Krishna consciousness, we want to get married, or we want children, we want a job, we want, things. So we want it for Krishna, but there's some mixture of some material element. There's some mixture of sense gratification. But we understand that according to the best of our ability, we try to do it for Krishna's pleasure, for the devotee's pleasure, and gradually our heart becomes purified. And then we'll come to that stage that it's only for Krishna, only for Krishna's pleasure that we're doing things. So in Bhagavad Gita 9:25, it says the verse, Yanti deva vrata devan pitri yanti pritir vrata putani yanti puteja yanti mad yajino pimam. It says, those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. So this, whatever we think of, it accumulates, and then we start worshipping that. So in that verse where it says that Krishna gives remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So someone may ask that Krishna is so powerful, why can't He make me remember Him? But Krishna doesn't, it's like love. You can't point at gunpoint say someone, love me. There's no love there. They may say it, but it doesn't come from the heart. It's not, doesn't penetrate the heart. So love comes out of free will, free choice. So if we want to worship the demigods, there's people who are also interested in the occult in black magic and that. So Krishna also gives remembrance of that. He gives also forgetfulness of him, because that's what we want. Some people want to worship Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh. Whatever we want, then Krishna will give us that, and that's where we will go. But we are so fortunate by Prabhupada's mercy that he's giving us the whole package. And wherever we are, we can gradually progress to Krishna. So whatever element we are giving prayer, it mentioned that even if people are worshipping the sky element, which is the all-pervasive element, and it's represented by the super soul within the heart. So gradually we can come to Krishna. So it's all about not just only the physical or the external process of devotional service, but it's all about the intention. Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning in that class, it's all about intention and the heart. So there's the verse in Bhagavad Gita 18:18 where it's talking about thinking, feeling and willing. So we understand that everything comes, material creations, it takes place from the subtle to the gross. So one is thinking of something, then we're feeling it. Okay, I'm thinking of ice cream, then I'm feeling it. Oh, it's going to be so nice and cool on my tongue on a hot summer's day. It's going to be so tasty, or it's going to be like there's a vanilla or whatever flavor we like. And then we're willing, so we'll go to the shop. There's the shop that the devotees go to in town, and they'll buy those sorbet ice creams. So in the Bhagavad Gita 18:18, it says that before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. So these subtle material desires, and whatever solution, so we're doing the final act. So in any solution arrived at before work is actualized, it comes from the subtle form of work. First, one has to undergo the psychological processes of thinking, feeling, and willing. And the mind is the center of all senses. But the mind is polluted by so many things. So the subtle body is covered by so many layers and layers. And we covered also by the gross body. But as we gradually purify the subtle element, just like the example is given in the Shikshashtakam, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, just like in the mirror is very dusty, but we can't see ourselves in the mirror. But when we start cleaning, if there's a thick wad of dust on the mirror, maybe it's stored for a long time in the attic, and it has such a thick layer, we start cleaning it, and then we do away with that cloth and we take another layer. So there's so many layers of dust, and we start cleaning it, and then gradually we'll start seeing the actual true form, our true face. So that is a material example. So gradually, by cleansing our heart, by doing devotional service, and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then our heart becomes cleansed. And by eating Krishna Prasadam, food that is blessed, offered to Krishna, then our heart becomes purified. Vaisheshika Prabhu, he mentioned in his previous classes that I hear from him on Facebook, on Fan the Spark, he says that if we're not happy with the sound we are subjected to, we need to change the soundscape, the subject that we are putting ourselves in. So we need to change to transcendental sound vibration. So in the material world, people are vibrating so many sounds. Just like Ikshvaku Prabhu once, he was mentioning in class, like, what's the first thing in the Bhagavatam? It's mentioned about questions. The questions asked by the sages of Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami. So everyone's asking questions. The birds are chirping early in the morning. They are asking the question. What are they asking? Who can answer? What are the birds they're chirping early in the morning? What are they asking?
Where's breakfast?
Yes, where's breakfast? Where's the worms? So, in the human form of life, we have the similar propensities as in every other living entity. Even in the animals, we have this propensity we have these aspects of eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. So that's also in the animal. But in the human form of life, we have something higher. We have this ability to inquire of higher purpose of life, not just where is the food, where can I get sense gratification, where is sex life, even if it's within marriage, and it's polished way of life, just like the dog in the street, it's enjoying sex life, and it's having this enjoying this, and then in a rich person may accumulate so much money, and in a high skyscraper building he has nice soft beds and whatever wine or whatever he may have, and he's enjoying sex life. But the dog is enjoying the same degree of enjoyment as that person who's endeavored so much materially, wasting the human form of life just for material things, to try to enjoy what even the animals are enjoying without any extra endeavor. In Bhagavad Gita, it mentions there that even Krishna is providing for the huge elephant tons and tons of grass. So the elephant is not endeavoring so much materially, it's just living its life. So that's why this human form of life is an opportunity for us to take advantage of this intelligence, this mind that we are given to inquire about the higher purpose of life. So yes, we can remain prasadam bhaktas, come to Sunday feast or come to the temple just for prasadam, but then we need to also go higher, that okay, let me do some service, let me try to read Prabhupada's books, let me try to put into action what Prabhupada is instructing me. Let me take another step towards committing to chanting more rounds, and then coming up to the platform of chanting 16 rounds minimum daily, and following the 4 regulative principles. Let me come up to the stage of taking shelter of a spiritual master, inquiring from him submissively, and rendering menial service. There's this key element of rendering menial service. So no matter whatever stage of however much or however many years we are practicing spiritual life, it doesn't mean that just like someone may think materially, okay, now I'm a manager, I don't have to clean the toilets and I don't have to sweep the office floor. But in the spiritual world, it's different, because even when we come up to the highest platform, when we do humble menial service, it is so satisfying, and it really opens up the mercy of the previous acharyas and of Krishna towards us. The example is given of this great saint in our line, Narottam Das Thakur, such a great intellectual, both materially and spiritually. But he did humble menial service for his spiritual master, Lokanath Goswami. When his spiritual master, he was aspiring for him, would go in the forest and do his morning business, passing stool and urine. Then he would, Narottam Das Thakur would go, he was hiding, and then he would go after his spiritual master had left, and he would clean up that stool. And then every morning, Lokanath Swami would come and he would wonder, why is this place so clean? Someone's doing it. And then because Lokanath Swami didn't want to give initiation. But then gradually, because of that sincerity and the humility of Narottam Das Thakur, the amanitva, the extreme humility, then he was given that benediction to the shelter of Lokanath Goswami. So no matter however many years we are practicing, this principle of humility, of amanitva, is so essential that we always understand that I am a servant, I am nobody. It's like Kadamba Swami says, I am the product of the devotee's mercy. Someone of his caliber, an initiating guru, he is saying that. So it's not just words or just some hot air someone is saying. It's coming from the heart. And how do we know it's coming from the heart? Because sometimes externally we may be doing service or things like that, but there are symptoms of someone who by doing the external and by working on the internal, being introspective, there are aspects of it that are manifest externally. Just like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, one develops steadiness. So you can't fake steadiness. Someone may be coming, doing service, coming for Mangal Aarti, but if they're coming day in, day out, or coming in weekly, every week they're coming and doing their service according to their capacity, but they're making a commitment, that steadiness over the years builds up, and you can't fake that. You know, sometimes some people want to, when someone important comes, a VIP comes, then you show up, and yes, there is benefit in that. Of course, there's no loss in that. We take advantage of that. But the key element is that, are we taking what that person is instructing? Are we taking the instructions, the Vani? Are we just trying to associate with the Vapu, the physical association of that person, or taking photos with the Guru, or, you know, here I am, whatever? Or are we actually applying what they are teaching, Prabhupada's teachings, and taking it to heart, showing up every day, doing our best, even if we are not able to, doing that little bit for Krishna, for the devotee's pleasure, then we are going to be given strength, because by doing devotional service, it's a matter of empowerment, it's a matter of getting mercy. We can't do anything without the mercy. It's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also. There's a verse, I don't remember exactly where it is, where we are, Krishna can take anything away from us at a moment's notice. Just like this blinking ability, this walking ability, utilizing our hands, an accident, one moment can take away our ability, or whatever gifts we are given by Krishna. If we don't utilize it with Krishna's service, for Krishna's pleasure, then it's taken away from us. But it's so inspiring that there is this one devotee, her name is Chitralekha Sakhi. She's a disciple of Vaisheshika Prabhu, and she's a French devotee, but she was in New Zealand for a few years, and she's from the neck down, she's paralyzed because she had an accident. She fell in the shallow waters, and she became paralyzed from a very young age, like pre-teens, and now she's in her early 40s. And they were in New Zealand, and they went to France, and now her and her parents, the family, they such stalwart devotees of the Lord. They are preaching, sharing Krishna consciousness. So I was so amazed by her level of surrender. She was actually saying a few years ago when I was in New Zealand, she was saying that actually she sees this as a gift and a blessing of Krishna, that this happened. Can you imagine she's saying such a thing? She said, I don't know what nonsense I would have been doing. Of course, I understand that it's her humility that she's saying that, because her parents and herself are such amazing devotees that they see. It's just like that verse, Tatenukampam Sushamikshamanam Bunjana Evatma. So it's that verse is saying that even whatever suffering comes, one sees it as the mercy of the Lord, and sees that as one's own sinful activities, and keeps on going in devotional service. So whatever happens, and she's utilizing her body, her mind in serving, in distributing books, in preaching, in sharing Krishna consciousness. So someone who is in such a condition is utilizing what she has for Krishna. What about us? We have our facilities of walking, of seeing Krishna, of doing things, our hands. So whatever, even though we may be suffering to whatever degree, whatever capacity we are doing, but why can't we do that? So it's not that we try to compare, but we use that as inspiration. If someone in such a condition can do so much, why can't I even just make a little endeavor, a little commitment for Krishna? And we see that Krishna helps us. And ultimately, through this cumulative practice, it accumulates. And even at the end of life, even if we can't remember Krishna and our voice is choking up, we can't talk, there's saliva stuck in our mouth, we can't even move in our body, then Krishna will come in our heart, in our mind, and we'll be able to remember Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. Or we may continue on and finish up whatever stage of life. If we practice 1% in our next life, we'll start at 2%. So there's no loss. And that's why Bhakti Chara Swami, when he took initiation, he was told that, you have so many lives, Krishna, why don't you just give this one life to Krishna? This one, we understand that we have so many lives. So, okay, we want to enjoy sense gratification. Okay, let it come in the next life. Just try this life. Try to do as much as we can in serving Krishna. Not that we waste our body and do overly, we need to also sleep enough, eat enough, not that we eat too little or eat too much, but according to our capacity, we use our intelligence to keep our health and body and mind fixed so we can utilize it in Krishna's service. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.6.22 purport, it says that a living being cannot be vacant of desires. He is not dead stone. He must be thinking, feeling, and willing. But when he thinks, feels, and wills materially, he becomes entangled. And conversely, when he thinks, feels, and wills for the service of the Lord, he becomes gradually freed from all entanglement. So it's all about moving from subtle to gross, that thinking, feeling, willing. We all have this ability to think and take shelter of Krishna. So let us take shelter of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Let us try to do everything from our heart, whatever service we do, whether it's cleaning the temple floor or doing paraphernalia or worshipping the deities, whatever we're doing, try to do it every day to the best of our ability, not just when it's a festival or when someone important is visiting. Even no one is watching us, but Krishna, the Super Soul, who is all-pervading, who is within our heart, is witnessing what we do. He knows what's in our heart. He knows what we are thinking. If we are thinking that, oh, look, this person's watching, or someone's going to take a photo and put it on Facebook and everyone's going to notice. Yes, we appreciate devotees, we see this, but we need to understand that I need to be consistent and do everything to the best of my ability, whatever service it may be, even though it's not so-called prominent or no so-called romantic or that big service, or even if it's the most insignificant so-called service. It's saying that even we want to rather be a sincere sweeper in the street than a puffed up pujari on the altar. Not that we are saying that the pujari is puffed up, but we should always be introspective and check our heart, check our mind. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it for the pleasure of Krishna? Am I being consistent every single time I'm doing whatever I'm doing? Is doing it with the right mindset, with the right intention, with the right mentality, then Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna and the devotees are pleased, then we have fulfilled our mission in this human form of life. In Krishna book, it says that Giriraj, he knew how Krishna would be pleased by serving his cows and the cowherd boys by providing for them. So we can also serve the devotees by facilitating their service, making things nice and clean, making things convenient for them. It's not that, I dress the deities, then I dump the jewelry in the drawer just anyhow. The next day the pujari can try to organize it. I'm just giving an example in the example of deity worship or things like that. We should always be conscientious, and when we do that, then Krishna is pleased, and that's when we will continue on in our devotional life. So we'll end there. If anyone has any questions, comments, corrections, additions, or any reflections. Krishna Rupa Mataji. Shama Manohar, could you please get the microphone?
Thank you so much for the very inspiring class, Vaishnavi. I got a lot out of your class. And in particular, I really liked the point that you were making about, what are we doing and why are we doing it? That we need to examine our motives and our heart and not do things on auto. Like when we come into the temple, we might come in and out 20 times a day, but to always offer the pranam prayers to Srila Prabhupada is so important. And Shruti Kirti's book, What is the Difficulty? By the way, it's a really wonderful book, that book. I don't have it, but when I was in Sydney, I was reading a copy down there, and it's very inspiring. He was saying that because he went in and out as Prabhupada's servant, he went in and out of Prabhupada's room all the time, but every time he offered his obeisance and recited the full prayer. So it's really easy to see when devotees don't do that because they get down and get up really quickly. So I think that was a very nice reminder for us to always offer the full prayers, to be mindful about what we're doing. And another thing also is not being judgmental, because we don't know what devotees are doing, when they're not coming to the temple, they might have other service they do, or they're getting ready for work. A lot of our devotees start work very, very early in the morning. So being mindful, being introspective, and holding off on the judgment, I think they're really good points. And thank you once again for a really good class.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I remember one of the classes you mentioned that one may not be able to come to the temple, but their home is the temple. So if one at home, they have their morning program or whatever program they're able to commit, but they're consistent, then that is beneficial. So nowadays, it's not like the old days where everyone was in the temple, and if you were living outside, you were considered to be in Maya. Nowadays, most of the ISKCON is congregation-based. But at the same time, in saying that, we need to be mindful that we don't also say, okay, now we're that, so it's fine, because we can also be caught, just like in the temple. We may live at the temple, some of us, but we may not take advantage of the program. So whether we're living inside or outside, if we just need to establish some program and gradually build on it, not becoming complacent that, okay, this is where I am, this is my capacity, but always try to see how I can do more, maybe make some commitment to come once a week or once a month with the whole family to the temple and take advantage of the morning program, Guru Puja, things like that. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.